In 1646, a 16-year-old boy named Shivaji captured Torna fort and raised a bright saffron flag of rebellion over its stone walls. At the time, the Indian subcontinent was dominated by the Mughal and Adil Shahi empires. Under their rule, local populations faced strict limits on where they could live, which religions they could practice, and how they could govern their own villages, freedoms that were non-existent for the average farmer. But Shivaji's mother, Jijabai, had instilled a different vision in him, Hindavi Swaraj, or true self-rule. To see exactly what he was up against, we have to look at the numbers. He began his rebellion with exactly 4 forts and a fighting force of only 2,000 men, facing down imperial armies that numbered in the millions. Meeting those empires on an open battlefield would have been a suicide mission. Building an independent nation was going to require an entirely different approach to warfare. His first break from tradition was his military roster. Instead of hiring professional mercenaries, Shivaji recruited local farmers. Look at the Sahyadri mountains. To a traditional army, navigating this terrain is a logistical nightmare, but for local farmers, it was their backyard. They knew every hidden valley, steep drop-off, and dense patch of forest. Shivaji trained them to use that geography to their advantage. They wouldn't line up in formations. They would wait in the hills, strike quickly with arrows and rocks from hidden vantage points, and disappear before the enemy could even draw their swords. Approaching imperial armies often found their ranks thinned and their morale broken by these invisible attackers long before reaching a designated battlefield. By turning the terrain itself into a weapon, Shivaji created a tactical foundation that allowed a small, motivated force to contend with the massive reach of an empire. The Adil Shahi Empire was the first to retaliate in force. They dispatched their massive general, Afzal Khan, with 10,000 soldiers to capture the man they called the Mountain Rat. Khan knew he couldn't win in the deep woods, so he tried to draw Shivaji out by destroying sacred temples. When that failed, Khan proposed a truce, insisting they meet near the rugged peaks of Pratapgarh, completely unarmed. Shivaji accepted, but he anticipated a trap. Before heading to the summit, he slipped chainmail armor beneath his robes and concealed a small bladed weapon known as a bognok, a tiger claw, inside his left hand. The moment they met, Khan stepped in for a customary embrace, pulled a dagger and drove it into Shivaji's back. The hidden armor deflected the blade, and Shivaji immediately retaliated, tearing into the much larger general with the concealed metal claws. Afzal Khan was dead. Shivaji had taken a carefully planned assassination attempt and inverted it, sending a shockwave through the imperial courts. In response, the empire sent another commander, Siddhi Johar, who successfully cornered Shivaji and 5,000 of his men inside the imposing stone walls of Panhala Fort. Trapped in a siege, Shivaji deployed a psychological tactic. He sent forged letters directly to the emperor, Adil Shah, claiming that Siddhi Johar was actually plotting treason, immediately sparking paranoia and infighting within the enemy camp. With the enemy distracted, he initiated his physical escape. A barber named Shiva Kashid, who bore a striking resemblance to Shivaji, dressed as the leader and fled in one direction, drawing the bulk of the pursuing army with him, while the real Shivaji clipped away. When the deception was finally discovered, the furious imperial army raced into the dark, rain-soaked mountain passes to cut off the escape route. To ensure his leader's survival, a commander named Baji Prabhu stayed behind with just 300 men. They fought the pursuing forces to the absolute end, holding their ground until the boom of distant cannons confirmed Shivaji had safely reached the next fort. The survival of the rebellion relied on this level of calculated sacrifice, driven by a deep loyalty to the shared dream of a self-governed homeland. The Mughal Empire soon stepped in, sending a general named Shaista Khan to occupy Shivaji's childhood palace, the Lal Mahal in Pune. Shivaji responded by disguising 400 of his soldiers as a festive wedding procession. They walked right past the Mughal guards, infiltrated the heavily fortified palace, and launched a sudden ambush that sent Khan fleeing out a window. Eventually, however, the numbers caught up to him. After a heavy military defeat, Shivaji was forced to surrender and was placed under strict house arrest hundreds of miles away in Agra, watched closely by the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb. He didn't stay long. Shivaji feigned a severe illness and requested permission to send massive daily baskets of sweets to local holy men. Once the guards grew used to the routine, Shivaji and his young son simply climbed into the baskets and were carried right out the front gates. The Mughals learned a difficult lesson. No physical prison or overwhelming military force can easily contain a leader who fights primarily by manipulating his enemies' expectations. Following his escape from Agra, Shivaji rapidly reclaimed his lost territories, and in 1674 he was officially crowned Chhatrapati, the sovereign king of a new independent empire. This chart shows the true scale of his military growth. In 1646, his starting position was just 4 forts and 2,000 men. Less than 30 years later, that force expanded to over 300 forts and a standing army of 100,000 soldiers. Shivaji's success redefined how power was measured in the region. He demonstrated that a highly mobile force, fueled by a clear ideological purpose, could effectively neutralize the sheer numerical weight of a much larger state.